The agents that survive and thrive in a downtime are the ones that know how to hunt for their own business. The ones that don't survive, the ones that get out of the business, the ones that trend down are the ones that don't know how to hunt, or they're unwilling to hunt. Hey, what's up, everyone? This is John Darden with the Elite Realtor Experience, a podcast dedicated to agents that want to take the next step in becoming elite. Let's be honest. Things are crazy right now. Things are a little uncertain. In fact, I walked into my office today and the power was off. And then the power came back on and the power went off again. I mean, it's like chaos everywhere, right? Things are just a little bit weird. I've heard the word eerie a lot. I mean, you get out on the streets in my community and it just has a different feel. Things are uncertain. We don't know what's happening. We don't know what's next. We don't know what's going to happen in the market. We don't know what's going to happen to our real estate business. Things are uncertain. And there's nothing wrong with calling a spade a spade. There's just a lot of unknown right now. And I know that we're all sitting back and we're wondering, so what's going to happen next? Are people still going to buy? Are people still going to sell? What's going to happen to my real estate business? It's just a time full of a lot of questions and a lot of worry and a lot of anxiety and a lot of doubt. However, this is not the first time that something like this has happened. Now, from a pandemic standpoint, this is a little bit different. The last time as a society we really dealt with something like this was back in 2009, the H1N1 swine flu. And for those of you that were around in the real estate world back in 2009, you remember that we were also in the midst of the worst recession since the Great Depression. So not only did we have a terrible market, but we also had an H1N1 swine flu, which killed hundreds of thousands of people. And we kind of forget about that right now, because for a lot of you, this is the first time you've experienced anything like this. But this is not the first time something of this magnitude has happened before. What are we in the midst of right now? Coronavirus, right? COVID-19. Everybody's freaking out. The first 2 cases were just announced in my city last night. And this place is in panic mode. I mean, you thought that Walmart and Costco had been raided before. Good luck today. I mean, you're just not going to find anything. And it's understandable. I mean, as my therapist says, an abnormal reaction to abnormal circumstances is actually normal. So it's not odd that people are freaking out, because these are unusual times. And so if you expect people to act normally during very abnormal times, that's actually abnormal. So what's happening is really, it shouldn't be viewed as crazy, because really as a human species, we, from our evolutionary standpoint, we do what we have to do to survive. And our survival instincts are high right now. They're very high. We're doing what we have to do to conserve and to protect ourselves. Which is not an abnormal response. That is a total side note. I completely digress back to the point. What we're experiencing today, we have experienced something very similar in the past. And the last time we went through this was back in 2008, 2009, 2010. We had the Great Recession. The economy was garbage. And we were dealing with the H1N1 swine flu, where millions of people were infected worldwide and hundreds of thousands of people died. Does this sound similar? I hope it does, because it's very similar to what we're experiencing today. Now, from a business standpoint, this is a business real estate podcast. So let's discuss the implications on your business, but then let's also discuss what we do to survive this time. And we're still early in it. We still don't know what it's going to look like over the next couple of months. How do we survive this? What does this look like on the back end? And then how do I set myself up to be successful through this? But then more importantly, how do I set myself up to be successful on the back end of this? Because we will get through this. The history of humanity has proven that no matter what is thrown our way, we survive and then we continue to thrive. So there's your hope. So I want to talk about my story of when I got started in real estate, what it was like and what I did. So, and I've talked about this recently a little more than I have in the past, but let's just kind of dive into it. I started in real estate at the end of 2008, early 2009. I had just graduated from Texas Tech University, Guns Up Wreckham, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I was uncertain about my future. I wasn't sure what career path I wanted to take. I didn't know where I wanted my life to go. And so I thought, well, just try real estate, give that a shot, because at that point, that was kind of the beginnings of the HGTV house flip shows, the house flipping craze. That's when that started to really kind of gain traction. So I was always watching these shows. Flip This House, I think, was the original one. And I was just enamored with it. I mean, I was completely compelled by people taking junked out, rundown homes, abandoned homes, foreclosed homes, and turning them into beautiful masterpieces that people fell in love with. And I thought, you know what? I want to be somewhat part of that. So the initial step would be to get my real estate license and get into it. So that's what I did. I was 22 years old. I was young. I was dumb. Literally, I mean, we'll see if we can find someday an old business card of mine. I looked like a 13-year-old kid. I mean, I was just cursed with the genetics of looking significantly younger than I was, which at this point is not necessarily a bad thing. People from time to time mistaken me for a college kid now. Yes, I'll take that, Bailey. I'll take that as a 34-year-old man. But that didn't suit me well as a 22-year-old brand new into real estate, starting in the beginning of the worst market that the world had seen since the Great Depression. Now, thankfully for me, that's all I knew. I didn't know any better. The norm back then was you would take a family on a string of showings. You show them 8 homes. And this was back when you actually put people in your vehicle and drove them around with you. I know we don't really do that anymore, but put a family in my car and we would drive around and look at 8 homes, and they would fall in love with 6 of them. 6 of them would be perfect. And they could go home and think on it for 10 days and then make a decision knowing that none of those homes were going to sell. And it was crazy. I mean, 8 homes, 6 of them beautiful, perfect, filled just about every checkbox that the client had. And they could think about it for a week or two, knowing that it was not going to go under contract. And this was the norm. This is what I was reared in. This is the real estate world that I grew up in. So I didn't know any better. And I just figured that that's just the way that it was. And then slowly we started to come out of the recession, and people's habits began to change. And it took me a while to adjust. I'd show 4 homes, and they'd fall in love with one in particular. And I would say, okay, well, y'all go sleep on it for a few days and holler at me and let me know what you want to do. And they would say, well, no, John, we want to buy this now. We don't want to lose it. And that was for the first time. Finally, I kind of sat back and realized, okay, we're coming out of this thing. And I really didn't even realize it. I didn't know any better. I was having to change my habits. People didn't want to lose out on their dream home, whereas 2 years before, they could think on it for 2 weeks and they really couldn't do it anymore. And so initially the market was one way, and then it began to shift and it began to change and it began to get better. We're in the midst right now, and for most of you, the vast majority of you, you weren't selling real estate at that time. So the only perspective you have is it being dynamite of a great house pops up on the market and you had to call your clients and say, meet me at this house in 20 minutes. Otherwise, there's no chance we're going to have at it. And maybe you still were the first ones there, but there were 5 offers on the property. I think it's time to begin to think about the reality that those days are probably coming to an end. And I could be wrong. I don't think I am. But I believe that we are stepping into a shift in the marketplace where those days of rush, hurry, overpay, 5 offers on a property are going to dwindle away. And we're going to begin to see a market very similar to what I started in 12 years ago, where people can take their time, where there's a lot of competition, where maybe it's more balanced, or even a buyer's market, where we've been in a seller's market for so long. And that freaks some of you out. Rightfully so. You're not used to it. Again, I said that my therapist tells me that an abnormal response to an abnormal stimulus is a normal thing. So it's normal for you to be hesitant. It's normal for you to have fear. It's normal for you to wonder, oh my gosh, am I going to be okay? Because circumstances are going to be different. Things are going to look different. Things are going to feel different. I think initially what we have to understand, and I'm going to respond to that, and I'm going to tell you what I did in 2008, 2009, 2010 to be successful in a terrible market. I think we have to embrace what is coming, understand that you don't have control over it. Last week's podcast, I talked about the fact that you're dealt a hand and you don't have control over that, but what you do have control over is how you respond to it. We're talking about your response today. What is your response? What do you tactically do to embrace the market that we're in and then survive it and then thrive in it as well? So embrace what's coming. Embrace the change. You can't control it. You have no control over it. So there's no need to worry about what you can't control. If you're worried about what you can't control, you're going to lose your mind. So we need to begin to shift our brain to think about the things that we can control. Number one is embracing things are changing. And a pandemic has led to that. And it's just reality. And a lot of you are worried about the health side of this. Maybe not so much for you personally, but maybe for your parents, your grandparents. And I get that. We're not going to speak to that today because that's not my expertise. But what I want to focus on for the next couple of minutes is what you need to do to set yourself up to survive this time and then on the back end, thrive. So I want to tell you what I did back in 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011 to survive, but then also thrive in the real estate industry. So here's my story. Here's what I did. When I first got started, I spent the first 6 months combing through and calling through and reaching out to every single expired listing from the previous 2 years. And you want to talk about getting used to rejection. You want to talk about learning how to handle people cussing you out. You want to talk about learning how to embrace somebody else's extreme emotion, which has nothing to do with you. Whew. I mean, it was trial by fire. I jumped straight into the boiling water of expireds. And it was not fun. It was not thrilling. But it taught me how to connect with people. It taught me how to hone in my script. It taught me how to deal with rejection, how to deal with failure. But at the same time, I had a lot of success in it. I might have to call through 50 expireds to have one good conversation, but the market was not good. And I needed to sell homes. I mean, I had a family. I had a mortgage. I had to take care of people. So I didn't have a choice. I had to figure it out. I had to do something. So while I'd get cussed out, no worries. So sorry. Have a great day. Boom. On to the next one. You're an idiot. We hate realtors. You all lie. You suck. Leave me alone. Okay? No, we're not interested in selling. Okay? Over and over and over and over until, yes, you know what? Actually, it's funny that you call. My wife and I were just discussing the other day that we think we might want to try again. Boom. Hallelujah. So for the first 6 months, and I got my first few listings based off of calling through expireds, trial by fire, jumping in the boiling water, dealing with rejection, understanding that I shouldn't take things personally. These are all things that I learned in those first 6 months. That's how I initially became successful. The next thing that I always focused on a weekly basis, and at least twice a week, I would call through FSBOs for sub owners. Now, there weren't as many back then because the market sucked. When the market's good, there's more FSBOs. When the market's bad, there's less FSBOs. When the market's good, there are less expireds. When the market's bad, there are more expireds. So one shift that I think you can begin to expect very soon is the reality that there will be more expireds in your market. which means that it will become a more viable lead generating source for you very, very soon. Again, I think we have to embrace reality that this is what's coming. So I would call through FSBOs twice a week, and I'd follow up like a dog with these people. And it took a long time. I did not convert my first FSBO in the first year. In my second year, I began converting FSBOs, but I got really, really good at it because I was dogged about it, because I was not going to give up, because I was going to focus on doing the things that I had to do to support my family, because I didn't have a choice. I think one of the things that a good market like we've been in does to you is it makes you entitled. It makes you a little spoiled as well. And I think you forget what you have to do to be extremely successful, because you just get a little bit spoiled in a good market. It's just not as hard because more people are buying, more people are selling, and you don't have to necessarily be as dogged as we did back in 2008, 2009, 2010 in order to find a ready, willing, and able buyer or seller, because everybody was afraid. People were scared. They didn't necessarily want to dive into home ownership because there was a lot of fear of the unknown. Another thing that I was really, really focused on was, I just realized, I am scratching my nose a bunch, which is like the thing the CDC says you should not be doing right now. Bailey, you can't cut that out, can you? You can't cut out a nose. Wow. I'm sorry. CDC. Sorry, World Health Organization, if you're watching. I know you're not, but if you happen to, I apologize. The next thing that I was doing that I really, really focused on, and these were kind of incremental steps. I focused on expireds. And then when I kind of got that script down, then I added in FSBOs. When I got that down, then I started adding in a geofarm. And I was very, very routine with my geofarm. I did not halfway do a geofarm like most of you are halfway doing your geofarms if you're doing a geofarm. I picked a neighborhood, and that neighborhood heard from me at least once a week. I door knocked like crazy. I know that sucks, but I did. And some of these old school tactics are going to be viable sources of generating business again as the market continues to trend down. I would door knock. Facebook was not really a thing used for business back in 2009. So I didn't really use Facebook. You couldn't run ads back then. I think at that point in time, you still had to have a .edu email address in order to even be on Facebook. So social media was not a viable means of generating business back in those days. So I geo-farmed like crazy. I door knocked like crazy. I wrote personal letters. I printed out CMAs and market stats and mailed and knocked on doors and did door drops. So my days were full of calling through expireds for 2 hours a day, calling through FSBOs for about 45 minutes, going on knocking on doors for 2 to 3 hours a day, typing up letters, printing them out. I would handwrite the envelopes so that people would actually open them as opposed to printing on them. These were the things that I did, and I was dogged about them, and I worked as if I did not find a client, I was going to die. That was my mindset. That was the only way to survive. And we saw people getting in the business and right back out of the business quick because the market just wasn't as good. And it was brutal. Literally, it was brutal. But the people that made it and survived, we developed the habits that led to us being extremely successful when the market turned and got really strong again, because we continued that type of work ethic. We continued that type of dogged fight to generate leads. And so we were reared when it was hard to find a ready, willing, and able buyer or seller. So we had to work 3 times as hard as you do now to find a ready, willing, and able buyer or seller, so that when the market turned, we kept those that kept that work ethic. Our business exploded, absolutely exploded. The unfortunate reality for a lot of you watching this is that you're so spoiled by what we've been through that the market turning down is going to mentally devastate you. And all of a sudden, you're going to have to start doing things that you're not used to doing. And a lot of you are going to choose not to do it because you're mentally weak. And I hate to just say that, but it's reality. So many of us are so mentally weak that a shift in the market and having to change our habits are going to be the thing that ends us. There are going to be a lot of agents get out of the business. A lot. Over the next couple of years. I'm predicting it now. As the market shifts, as the market turns down, as we kind of start to slide into recession, the potential for recession, a lot of people will be getting out of the business, and not as many people are going to sign up to take their courses to get their license, which for you full-time folks is not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, I say this in my brokerage. I somewhat welcome a bit of a dip in the real estate market because a lot of the hobbyist agents in my market, they're going to shift out, which opens the door for a lot of opportunity for the full-time folks, which is not necessarily a bad thing. The next couple of things that I did, and we're going to wrap this up, is that I really started to focus on investors. One of the things that we understand in recession and in a down market is that the people that are smart with their money and live beneath their means and begin to invest instead of just buying creature comforts to make them feel better, the people that take their money and begin to invest in a down market make a lot of money and build a lot of wealth. So I started to focus on investors. I started to prove myself to people who had a lot of money, and then those folks, as their stocks plummeted and as the volatility of Wall Street just created a lot of tension and unease in their own minds, they saw a huge opportunity from a real estate standpoint, and they began putting their money into real estate. And they used me to do it because I had proven myself that I was a hard worker. I had proven myself in the market, and I knew what a good deal was, and I knew what a bad deal was. And I didn't send people junk. I sent them good deals, and they began to buy those things. And so I developed a lot of really great relationships with a lot of really great investors who began to buy up a lot of homes in the market. I wasn't so concerned about my average sales price at that point, which I know a lot of you, when the market's good, you're focused on inching up your average sales price, which is not bad. But when the market's down, you got to focus on deals, right? You got to focus on transactions. So I started focusing on investors, and those investor clients kept me afloat because they were buying. Hey, here's a new foreclosure. Okay, great. Let's go put an offer on it. Sight unseen. Again, investors trusted me because I'd proven myself in the market that if I sent them something, they knew if it wound up in their email inbox from me that I thought it was a good deal, so they wanted to jump on it. I had several investor clients, and I would shoot them all the deals, and whoever wanted to jump on it first, that's who got it. And so for me, I built a lot of success during the downtime focusing on investors. And then lastly, for me, it was just an insane amount of lead generation. And a lot of you don't like that. You don't want to hear that. You want to do this all day. Phone's ringing. Hello. Yes, I'd love to help you. Hello. Yes, I'd love to show you. Hello. Yes, I sold your friend a home and I would love to work with you too. That's all you want to do. And when the market's good, that's the goal. But when the market trends down, you have to hunt. You have to. You have no choice. If you are not able or willing to hunt for your own business, you're just not going to survive. I mean, I'm just going to be straightforward. The agents that survive and thrive in a downtime are the ones that know how to hunt for their own business. The ones that don't survive, the ones that get out of the business, the ones that trend down are the ones that don't know how to hunt, or they're unwilling to hunt, but generating leads. And I just told you the things I focused on. I would spend 2 hours a day on expires, 45 minutes to an hour a day on FSBOs. I would door knock several hours a day. I was constantly sending properties to investors. My day was full of nothing but generating leads. And when you got an appointment, it was like, oh my gosh, I did it. Whereas right now, and really the past 8 years or so, getting appointments has not been a challenge. It's not been hard to get an appointment. It's going to be much harder getting an appointment moving forward. Once again, it's just reality. It's a reality you have to embrace if you want to survive and thrive in what is inevitably coming a down market. You've got to focus on lead gen. You have to double down, triple down. If you're doing an hour a day of lead gen, that's not enough to survive what's coming. You've got to make that 2, 3, 4, some of you 6 hours a day of nothing but generating leads. Social media helps with that immensely. I talked about that a lot last week. I don't want to repeat myself. We'll talk about it again. How to use social media to help you in a recession, help you grow your brand and grow your business, because I think that social media is the thing that is going to help people make it through what's coming, on top of an insane amount of lead generation. So that's my story. That's how I survived. I did a lot of things that nobody wants to do, and I really didn't necessarily absolutely enjoy it, but I enjoyed paying my bills, and I enjoyed having paychecks, and I enjoyed building a steady stream of income. And I understood, the further we got into this, that we were going to come out of this recession. We were going to continue to thrive, because that's what we do as humanity. We figure it out. We're going to come out of what we're headed into. We're just now heading into it. We're on the beginning of it. So it's going to be a while, potentially. Again, I could be wrong. I don't think I am. But when we get full-fledged into it and you all start to see some of the things I'm actually talking about, understand that we're going to get out of it. And there's certain people that are going to thrive on the back end of it. And you have to do what you have to do to thrive. Survive first and then thrive. This was my story of how I did just that in the worst economy since the Great Depression. I hope that this has given you potentially some tactical strategies and to employ, to begin doing now, so that you can set yourself up to survive and thrive. But if nothing else, I hope maybe it's made you sit back and think, maybe I should start to see what's going on and begin to shift my mind and embrace what's coming, because it's coming. And you may not like it, but it's reality. Hope this was helpful. See you on the next one.